Hey everybody, Tony D and Little Joan here with another Screenwriter's Rant. This one's called Jacob's Wife, and it's about a pastor's wife. The pastor's Jacob over here, and his wife. She's entering her middle aged, and she's bored. She's bored with her life. She wants a little excitement, and she meets an old flame for a drink. He wonders what happened to her and the crazy woman he once knew. They end up meeting at this, I guess it's like some kind of warehouse, and they're gonna have some kind of affair, but they sit on these boxes which turn out to be coffins full of vampires, and they both get bit. Now I think the man gets killed, but the woman gets turned into a vampire, and she is like freaking out. So here she is, and this is a horror movie from Shudder, so you can see her puncture wounds, and she starts transforming. She starts eating live worms. The dentist notices her new teeth. She goes to the supermarket and buys up all the blood, and it's not enough. She becomes insatiable. She starts killing people, and the pastor, see here she is. She killed a neighbor. And the pastor has to help cover up her murders, and she becomes more and more free, and they got to deal with the bodies. So it's kind of like almost a metaphor for a woman who's in a boring relationship and she just goes bananas. So here she is transforming. Here he is, finally having enough. He's trying to keep her at bay. Here's a bloody scene. Oh, here she is with like teeth and glowing eyes, and then the cops get involved because there's so many murders. Looks like it's a fun movie, I gotta say. I mean, it's a horror movie, so obviously there's going to be a lot of blood. I can't read the credits here. What does this say? Directed by Travis Stevens. Screenplay by Mark Steensland, Kathy Charles, and Travis Stevens. Is that any of the actors? No. So, yeah, this is from Shudder. They do a lot of horror. I'm not sure when it comes out, but this looks pretty watchable. It looks pretty interesting. It's a good setup because obviously the pastor's going to have some problems with his wife turning into the undead. But part of the trailer is him preaching to his choir. If you're a husband, you got to be a good husband. You got to stick with your wife. So that's obviously where he's torn, right? So the first act, you see their life, and it's boring, and she's going to have an affair. And at first she's like, no, but then she meets the guy. Then they get bit. Second act, she goes home, is covered in blood. Everything's all messed up. She tries to clean it all up, but she notices she's transforming, and then the second act is her transforming and becoming more and more wild and crazy, and more of an extrovert, because that's what happens when you turn into a vampire, right? But also she has the insatiable bloodlust, and she eventually escalates until she kills a guy and then drinks his blood. She can't help herself. Then eventually the pastor finds out, and then he starts helping her, and they're hiding bodies. And then finally, by the end of the second act, like the cops are onto him. The pastor's being a total hypocrite in his own church. And the third act is probably a fight between the pastor and his wife. And, he's finally got to take her out because he can't sustain this anymore. It's the only way to end it. Either she has to kill him or he has to kill her. So that's kind of a cool setup because you're going to get some kind of closure. You're probably not going to get any halfway measure with that. Those two elements can't sustain themselves. They can't possibly sustain their marriage. So, yeah, I'd like to see this. This looks pretty cool. Shudder, I believe, is it online? I think it's online. I know they've got a whole new channel called Shudder and a ton of movies. It looks like an old school 80s vampire movie, so I'm going to give it an upvote. Check it out sometime this year. Jacob's Wife. Jacob with a K.